Sit down and grab your lunch. It's time for the Bolts Brown Bag, the only show where you make the call.
Well, it's mid-December, which means the Bolts must have their backs to the wall. And yes, in fact, they do. Welcome to another edition of Bolts Brown Bag, coming to you live every Monday at 12:30 from our 10 News Cafe patio. I'm Ben Higgins, and joined today, I've been waiting for this one all season, by special guest co-host Kimberly Hunt. Of course, you know her from evenings at 5, 6, 7, and 11 on 10 News, but you might also know her as wife of Billy Ray Smith, former Chargers linebacking legend, and one of the biggest Chargers fans, not only in our building, but in all of San Diego. So, Kim, it is great to have you on Bolts Brown Bag today.
I was honored you asked, and it was great fun in our house, especially for the weekend. I was side by side with Bill the whole weekend, which he loved. He wished that I would get with you every week for this.
I wish we could have had a victory for you to talk about today, but the good news is the Chargers aren't out of it, and we'll get to the playoff scenarios in just a little while, what still needs to happen over the last couple of weeks of the season. But first of all, just want to get your thoughts on the game. I personally so surprised to see a Phillip Rivers-led offense struggle as much as they had the last couple of weeks. Just one touchdown offensively against the Patriots, just one touchdown yesterday against the Broncos. The defense has played really well enough to win, and they just haven't been able to get the points on the board.
Yeah, especially that impressive red zone stopping yesterday with the defense was great. But plain and simply, we need a run game. And we don't have a run game. And now if we try to do, any kind of play action pass, anything, they're not buying it because we don't have a run game. So we're going to have to, a little closer? Thank you. I'm being told to put the mic a little closer. But, it's when I looked at the stats with Billy Ray after the game, too, and our top 3 receivers for this past game was a tight end and 2 running backs. So you don't even get to our wide receivers until you get to the 4th person down for about 36 yards in catching. And so it stops everything. A quarterback's best friend is a good run game. And we got to fix it.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue into our poll question today at boltsbrownbag.com. If you're watching, you should see it right along the right side of your screen there. You can vote, and the question is, which player have the Chargers missed the most offensively this season due to injuries? And all 3 happen to be critical to the run game. Center Nick Hardwick, who, of course, was lost in the first game of the season. That's had a big impact on the offensive line all year. Danny Woodhead, who was lost in the second game of the season, the real escape valve, spark plug for Phillip Rivers on offense. And then Ryan Matthews, who has been in and out of the lineup because of injuries all year. But I thought particularly yesterday, missing out on Ryan Matthews was critical because you're right. The Chargers are best when they're balanced, and they just don't have a lot of balance. Brandon Oliver had a couple of nice games, but those were against pretty bad teams. Against these good teams, without Ryan Matthews, the Chargers have trouble getting it going on the ground. And I thought this was an amazing stat. The Chargers in 2014 have played the Broncos 3 times. The playoff game back in January in Denver that they lost, and now twice in the regular season. In those 3 games, Ryan Matthews has only carried the ball 5 times, and those were in the playoff game, and then he was too injured to go on. He just hasn't been able to go against the Chargers' biggest rival, and it's hurt him all 3 games.
I absolutely agree, and I think it is time. We all love him, and I from the time I've met him with his mother, by the way, and heard their story, homeless for a while and living out of his car. He had a hard upbringing. He was a good kid, trying to get back to youth in San Diego. So I've been really supportive the whole time. But I do think now we at least need to say you have to prove to this team and this town that you can stay healthy so that you can put together a string of good numbers, because you've got to have a string of good numbers. And so what's happening now is we go into yesterday's game, we're looking at Donald Brown, and we're looking at Brandon Oliver, and the truth is they're not yet an LT. They may grow and they may become great, but we can't win with them. Right now at what's going on. You just look at the numbers and you look at, a little over 2 yards per carry average coming out of a game, and it's hurting us, and we can't be that unbalanced and win these games or really have a good future ahead as we look to that. You're right, the balance is not there.
All right, if you want to participate, you can tweet us. I'm at Ben Higgins SD. Kimberly is at 10 News Hunt. I don't know if you have your phone with you,
It's
but
right
she'll
there.
answer you afterwards or during at any time. Already got a tweet in from Mike who says, it's not over technically, but does anyone have a really good feeling going forward this year? The offense has the flu, it seems. Maybe they caught it from Peyton Manning yesterday, who said he had 4 IVs both before the game and during the game. But I thought the Chargers missed a golden opportunity because Peyton wasn't quite himself yesterday. You could just see, based on his reactions, and he was still good. Don't get me wrong. He was still very good, but based on his energy level, he didn't even celebrate on that when they thought they had that touchdown at the end of the first half. He just kind of slumped off the field and walked to the locker room, and I think the Chargers missed a golden opportunity.
And it's so funny. We hate to admit it, but when we heard he had the flu, didn't we all kind of go, oh, yay.
We're bad people.
That's going to help
We're
us
bad
a little
people.
bit.
I know.
But, and again, but it kind of, one thing leads to another. Without a run game, we have a quarterback trying to throw to replace a run game. But now he's throwing and averaging 5.7 yards per carry. It's like, per throw in his case. Trying to okay, we're not running it, we're throwing it as if we were running it for these 5.7, but that doesn't work. You have to get the one thing going, and then you have to get some long passes and get some distance and get both games going.
All right, talk about the good feeling. Let's get that graphic up, what the Chargers can still do to get into the playoffs, because it's not that far-fetched. Last season, in fact, with 2 games to go, the Chargers were in much worse shape at 7-7 and needing a whole lot more help than they are this year. But I figured out last night that to make the playoffs at 10-6, they'll need to win the last 2 games at San Francisco and at Kansas City and get a little bit of help. One of those last 3 scenarios, either 1 loss by the Baltimore Ravens or 2 losses by the Pittsburgh Steelers or 2 losses by the Cincinnati Bengals. And if one of those 3 things happen and the Chargers win their last 2, they're in. So, can the Chargers take care of business and let the chips fall where they may at this point?
Yeah, we don't control our own destiny anymore. That's unfortunate. Now it has to be us, winning on the road. We don't have Qualcomm Stadium home games anymore. And other people have to lose, and all this has to happen. But I do worry a bit that, we went into the season and we were at a great record. We had a momentum. Things looked good. I think the last 2 games and what you talked about with 2 touchdowns in two games, Ben, it's kind of more. It starts to be a feeling where you can see the energy and the emotion go down, and they start to kind of. That's not the momentum we want. It's not the way to try to go into these last must-wins.
All right, Chargers are already down to business at Chargers Park this morning. Mike McCoy has already addressed the media, talked about yesterday's game, starting to look forward, but I wanted to bring you a little bit of what Mike McCoy said about the Chargers' struggles on offense, specifically in yesterday's 22-10 loss to the Broncos.
When you play a team like the Denver Broncos that's going to do certain things, you got to capitalize on every opportunity and every possession. Every time you have the football, it's critical you do good things with it. We got off to a really slow start offensively. Obviously, only 6 plays in the first quarter, 2 3-and-outs, which is not good enough against a good football team. We got to find a way to come out to a faster start.
All right, so obviously the Chargers getting off to those slow starts and really the self-inflicted wounds, the penalties, the personal foul on DJ Fluker, and I don't know if you saw that one, but Mike McCoy, about as angry as I've seen him with one of his own players as Fluker came to the sidelines. And Fluker wasn't the one who threw the first punch in that situation. I showed it last night. We had video, and I posted it on my Facebook account, of what started that. And Derek Wolfe of the Broncos kind of slugged DJ Fluker, but it's always the guy who retaliates who ends up getting the penalty, and it was so costly for the Chargers in that situation.
Yeah, and it was in that same drive when they had 2 penalties, and so they ended up with a field goal attempt instead of being able to really go down the field. And we all understand the energy and the emotions that happen on the field. Fluker is a great guy, but he can't do it, and it is rare to see McCoy kind of just really dress him down like that on the sideline in front of the fans, in front of everybody watching, in front of his team. But it hurt. It's costly, and I think we can all hope that he won't do that again.
All right, we're going to bring out Brandon with our lunch in a little while, but I want to go out to Denver right now because we are joined by our colleague from our sister station, KMGH, and once again joining us on Bolt's Brown Bag is Lionel Bienvenu, sports director. And Lionel, first of all, hey, congratulations to the Broncos. They've been the better team. Phillip Rivers said as much after the game, said the Chargers just aren't there yet with the Broncos and the Patriots. They're close, but they can't quite get over the hump. What did you see in yesterday's game?
Well, Ben, it's early here in Denver. It's like 6 a.m. Mountain Time, so I'm drinking coffee.
No, that was 6 a.m. when I was on your show this morning in my bathrobe.
Oh,
this
wow.
morning. Yeah.
Joined us on the Orange and Blue Review today. Had an ungodly hour there in San Diego. But yes, when we talk about the Broncos and Chargers being a big rivalry, going back to Phillip Rivers and Jay Cutler back in the day, but so far the Broncos have dominated this thing in recent years. So the rivalry thing, I think the Chargers need to beat the Broncos to make this a rivalry, but the Broncos are obviously the better team, especially on defense. Ben, we talked about it 4 games ago. The Broncos lost to the Rams. They ran the ball 9 times. They got beaten. They totally did a 180, changed their philosophy, decided to run the football first. Peyton Manning attempting 20 passes in a game. That is virtually unheard of. But that's what he's done the last 2 weeks in a row. But they've run the ball. They played great defense. And yesterday we were able to come out of San Diego with the win. And then, I mean, the Chargers, they win 5 in a row. They lose 3 in a row. They win 3 in a row. They lose 2 in a row. Some consistency here. And you guys have been in the playoffs already, right?
Exactly.
8-6.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can still make it. But it just seems like it's hard to figure out which Chargers team is going to show up. And without a running game, we talked this morning about Matthews being out. And without a running game, you become one-dimensional, and then it's really hard to win as you head towards the playoffs.
Lionel, let me ask you about Peyton Manning. You mentioned only 20 attempts. How much of that was by design, and how much of it was because of that illness? He talked about all the IVs he had. He certainly didn't look like himself completely. Like I said earlier, he didn't even celebrate when they thought they had that touchdown at the end of the first half. He just kind of slumped back into the locker room without any emotion at all.
Yeah, I think the MVP of yesterday's game was the IV guy, as John Fox said after. He goes, we got an IV guy. Who knew? They had a scoreboard guy the last time when you guys came to San Diego, the scoreboard guy, now the IV guy. Yeah, 4 IVs. Peyton got flu-like symptoms the night before the game. Now, we don't know if it's really the flu or not, because you always hear about flu-like symptoms, but John Fox said today Peyton's day-to-day, he's still sick, so it could possibly be the flu. But, yeah, he was down. I mean, they wanted to come into this game and throw the ball more because they thought the Chargers would try to stop the run, given what they've seen C.J. Anderson do the last 4 weeks. So they were planning to throw the ball a lot more than they did. But I think with the sickness, that changed the game plan. He ran off with 1:53 left and ended up missing a drive there when Brock Osweiler came in. So this was a strange game, Ben, from the Broncos' perspective in terms of Peyton Manning not being himself, running off, but then coming out like the comeback kid there in the third quarter after the Broncos tell you Brock Osweiler's in. Peyton's not going to play the third quarter right now.
If only he could have stayed in, Kim. If only he could have stayed in. I like the Chargers' chances with Osweiler.
And Lionel and Ben, I'm just looking at a stat here, and the two of you are talking about it. But when you talk about Manning's passing rating and his quarterback rating coming out of this game at 125.6 versus Rivers at 62.2 in this game. I mean, and he has the flu, and we don't have a running game. But that's how much he doubled the passing.
Yeah, what kills Phillip is obviously the 2 turnovers. That breaks the passer rating.
Well, it sounds like we're losing a little audio there, Lionel. We'll see if we can get you back here. If we don't, get any audio for Lionel?
Check 1, 2.
There we go. There you're back. You're back.
All right, we're back. We talked about turnovers, guys. Phillip Rivers, 2 picks. Peyton Manning protected the ball, did not turn it over. So that's the passer rating right there. Is that you don't throw interceptions. You throw a touchdown pass, you go 14 of 20, you're gonna look pretty good, especially when you can run the ball when you need to, like the Broncos did.
And I'm sure that Phillip a little jealous of some of those weapons that Peyton had around him. I mean, Demaryius Thomas made big plays throughout the game. Not a huge number of catches, but they were all critical. One-on-one plays. Chargers seem to be in good coverage. Julius Thomas came back in a limited way, but that helps the Broncos as well. And Sanders makes big plays against the Chargers too. And without Woodhead, without Matthews, the Chargers were missing some of their playmakers around Rivers.
Yeah, I tell you what. I mean, playmakers. You look at it. Demaryius Thomas is probably the #1 guy in the NFL one-on-one. I saw Des Bryant last night just, tear up the Eagles. You look at the big play receivers, but just being big, strong, and able to catch the ball in one-on-one coverage, Demaryius Thomas is as good as it gets. And that big play at the end of the third quarter there with 30 seconds left when Peyton threw the touchdown pass, that was a game changer for the Broncos against the Chargers. Also, guys, when Eddie Royal didn't run all the way with that punt return, if he gets in the end zone, it's 9-7.
Right.
All right? I mean, Colquitt turned him in. He got tackled, had to settle for a field goal to make it 9-3. That sequence at the end of the first half, and then at the end of the third quarter as well with the touchdown, Chargers are in it all the way up to that point. 2 big plays right there made the difference. That's the NFL, right? A play here,
Right.
a play there
Yeah.
makes a difference between winning and losing.
And you're talking about Demaryius Thomas. So he ran for 123 yards, averaged over 20 yards per carry. And we've got Gates and Oliver and Brown are our running backs before we ever get to a wide receiver stat. Our wide receiver with 34 yards, Malcolm Floyd. So we have 34 yards, and we have Thomas over there running 123
and the
yards.
injury to Keenan Allen, he was not 100% after hurting his ankle in that game. We'll see. The Chargers have some work to do if they're going to get another rematch in the playoffs. Lionel, great to have you again on Bolts Brown Bag. Thanks for checking in from Denver. Appreciate it as always.
Look, if you go and beat the 49ers and beat the Chiefs, you never know, Ben. You'll be back here in the Mile High City before you know it, buddy.
Hopefully I'll see you in January, Lionel. Take care.
All right.
He's so
Thanks.
kind.
I know.
That's so nice
He didn't
of
rub
him.
it in. Appreciate that as always. So that's Lionel Bienvenu. He's our sports director up at our sister station, KMGH in Denver, and he's checked in a couple of times. Always had the bragging rights this season, though.
Yeah, and especially today, because they've really shown. I mean, Denver has changed their game, but they did change it. They knew they needed to get a running game. They needed to get the balance, and they did. So now they're running on all cylinders, and you can come out of a game like that and feel pretty good about it. But he was very sweet.
All right, we're going to get to our Bolts Brown Bagger of the game in a little while. We've got our 3 questions still coming up, but I put it off for a little bit too long. It is time for lunch. We got to find out what's for lunch.
Yay, I'm hungry.
With our resident expert, Brandon Chambers, our sous chef here at our 10 News Cafe, our semi-pro football player. Brandon, what do we got today on the menu?
Today we have the chicken Cobb salad with
Chicken Cobb salad.
yes, sir.
Okay.
With eggs, red onions, tomatoes, blue cheese, bacon, and to top it off is some creamy ranch dressing.
Avocado and bacon are 2 of my favorite things together.
That's
I know.
just divine.
Doesn't that look great?
I love what we do, and you guys are so talented in there. So, Brandon, I'm kind of new to your football past. So, wide receiver?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see the game yesterday?
Yes, I did.
So I'm wondering, when you watched it, did you think that Phillips just couldn't find anyone, or did you think no one was open? How did you sort of perceive that?
The way I seen it, it was it had a little bit to do with the running game, so it was a little more pressure for Phillip Rivers to actually get the ball going to certain receivers. Certain times he had the crossing routes to go in, but once Denver shut that down, it's like he was looking more for Antonio Gates. So once you start looking for one player, it's kind of easier to shut down a quarterback and shut down that one player.
Keenan Allen is a terrific receiver. I don't want to take anything away from him, and he was a bit hurt yesterday, but he's not quite on the level of Demaryius Thomas. I mean, you watch some of the plays that he makes one-on-one. He's got that ability of Malcolm Floyd to go up and win those one-on-one battles, but he's got the speed of some of those elite speed receivers. You can see why he's one of the best in the game, and it's not all just Peyton Manning. He's got some great weapons too.
Yeah. Peyton Manning is really a great quarterback. I like when he's actually spreading the ball around, so you can't really key on just one receiver, because then he'll go to Wes Welker, and then once Wes Welker's going, he'll go back to Demaryius or even Thomas at tight end. So he does have a lot of key players and players who can go deep, go short, medium route. So he's just a variety player who can just get the ball going anywhere to any receiver.
Yeah, I kind of saw it. To me, it did seem like our wide receivers were not very open as much as they should have been, but it also seemed that when Rivers got a chance, he wasn't playing his best game by any stretch either.
Yeah,
so.
he seemed very stressed out and pressured in the pocket. I would have liked to see him dump the ball off to the running backs more, because they were really open on the checkdowns after they hit a little chip block and then peel out. Brandon Oliver, he was doing a good job with the protection in the pocket until they found out how to get around the edge with Elmas. I can't think of his name right now.
On Von Miller.
Yes, Von Miller.
I didn't even know what
Got it.
position you were trying to remember.
Elvis Dumerville was there before. Now it's Von Miller,
Yes,
but they've
Von-
always got
yes.
someone coming around the edge.
Von Miller just coming around the
Yeah.
edge, just causing that pressure. So
Yeah, well, they protect him. There weren't, Rivers wasn't sacked, but at the same time, those holes didn't seem to be there for the running backs either. So,
Brandon, another winner on the menu there. Thank Jeff Charles for us, and thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me by.
Appreciate it, as always. Before we move on, Kim, I want to talk about another issue from the game yesterday, and it's been brought up again by Corey Leggett this morning as the Chargers met with the media at Chargers Park. And that was the number of visiting Broncos fans and how loud they were at the game yesterday. Just like last week when Patriots fans made themselves heard, Broncos fans, a lot of orange in the stadium yesterday, they made themselves heard again. And it sounds like it's starting to bother some of the Chargers players a little bit. Let's listen to Corey Leggett.
It felt like a away game. I mean, to me, we had 16 away games this whole season, but that's due to I would say the lack of not winning and fans just not coming out and supporting. But I know we have some real true diehard loyal fans that if they could afford to come to the game they would. So that's just a part of the whole nature of the beast or whatnot. But it definitely did feel like a away game though.
He tried to soften the blow a little bit, but, I mean, look at all the orange in the stands yesterday. Kind of a condemnation of Chargers fans for either selling their seats or letting Broncos fans buy up some of the tickets to the game yesterday and not creating the home field atmosphere that you want. One of the Denver columnists tweeted that he thinks San Diego may have the worst home field advantage in all of football. That kind of hurts as a native San Diegan and a Chargers fan.
Right, you're a native San Diegan, and I've been here for many years and involved in San Diego Chargers for 20 years. I always feel like we have to be a little bit careful because I don't like the criticism that we're not good fans. I don't buy that. I think that we're very good fans. There's a lot of loyal people in San Diego. We want this team in San Diego, so that's an entire different issue with the stadium and those things for the future. But I also feel that on a given game, if you as a player didn't feel that they provided so much noise that they became the extra player that you wanted them to be because they've done that in past games, you need to perform on the field and kind of zip it after the game. If you didn't perform, don't start talking about fans.
And there's always a good chunk of opposing fans for every home game that the Chargers play. But if the Chargers are winning, if they're putting points up on the board, you don't really notice them because the Chargers fans are drowning them out. But the last 2 weeks especially, Chargers fans haven't had a lot to cheer about during the game. So the other fans, they get the momentum going. They get louder during the course of the game. I didn't think – there was a lot of fans, Denver fans there yesterday, but no different than we see with the Raiders when they come to town or other big-name teams like the Patriots or the Packers that bring, that's the one game they come to if they don't live in their home cities every year. They come to San Diego. Of course they would. That makes a lot of sense. And I hope that's not held against Chargers fans because I really do understand that phenomenon. And as you said, the other issue was that, some people talking about whether the game yesterday could possibly be the last one for the Chargers at Qualcomm Stadium, considering they have the option to get out of their lease in February. And there's been more and more talk about the NFL wanting a team in Los Angeles. And whether the Chargers want to be that team, they definitely don't want another team like the Rams or Raiders moving into that market and taking away some of their fans and possible revenues. So that's why it's kind of all coming to a head. Right. I saw a very crazy sounding tweet, and I just want to bring this up. It was from Albert Breer of the NFL Network, who said he heard one scenario where if the Chargers were to move to Los Angeles, that the Oakland Raiders would then slide down to San Diego. Can you imagine the San Diego Raiders? Can you even imagine that?
No.
That's a possibility.
That's just you don't have that DNA in you anymore if you've been in San Diego for however many years, unless you're one of those, few people out there. But in general, en masse, we can't stomach that.
I don't want to host Raiders Brown Bag. I don't.
No.
It's Bolts Brown Bag, not Raiders Brown Bag.
Absolutely.
Keep them in Oakland. If they want to move to Los Angeles, I don't think they're the right team for it, but better than the Chargers. Keep the Chargers here in San Diego is what I always say.
And I'm one of those people that believe the Chargers want to stay here. I think the Spanos family has proven that over and over again. And that stadium has been an issue for a long time. We do need to address the stadium issue, but I think they've been very loyal to San Diego. I think they have full intention of staying here. I'm not real worried about them taking off and doing what they could do legally in February.
All right, let's get to something positive, and that is our Bolts Brown bagger of the game. And even though they lost 22-10, defense played very well again, so I went to that side of the ball. And today's winner is Jaleel Adai, safety, who is back and hitting as hard as ever. Had 7 tackles yesterday and one huge hit that knocked running back C.J. Anderson out of the game for a few plays in the second quarter. But, he flies around with the ball, and I know it cost him a little bit earlier in the season when he had that concussion and then had to sit out for a few weeks because he was out there. You remember the video, it was scary,
yes.
Wobbly, woozing out there. But he's healthy, back again, back on the field, and doesn't seem like that slowed him down at all because he is definitely the Chargers' hardest hitter and probably scariest player if you're on an opposing team.
I saw the same thing, too. When you look at the defense, which was definitely the bright light of the game, and you start to see what they were able to do at the 10-yard line with, 3 different field goals instead of being the touchdowns, and which was incredible. So at the half, it was like, wow, look at what the defense is doing in the red zone. This is incredible. And you'd see his play, and you see the tackles, and there are bright spots on the defense.
Kim, I see Ferris has arrived for our 3 questions. He actually sits just a few rows down from you in the mornings before you get there. But so he comes in and does 3 questions for us every week on Bolts Brown Bag about the NFL. So, Ferris, good to see you. Question number 1, if you would please.
So you may have heard Johnny Football played a game yesterday.
Yeah, they talked about that.
Do we have to remember that?
Hyped it up a bit, too.
So you and I have kind of gone back and forth about this in some of our columns. But the truth is, Johnny Manziel had a horrible game yesterday. He was picked twice. He was sacked 3 times by my Bengals. So we were discussing going into the season. You had 3 big rookie QBs. You had Bortles, Bridgewater, Manziel. Which one do you guys think goes the distance, has a career?
It's funny, I think, how many people have already given up on Johnny Manziel after just one bad game. I mean, the Chargers stuck with Ryan Leaf for about 3 years before they finally gave up. So let's at least give Johnny Manziel another half of football or something to prove what he can do out there. It was an awful performance. It really was. At the beginning of the year, I said Blake Bortles I thought was the guy. But after watching this season and seeing what Teddy Bridgewater has done without Adrian Peterson, I thought the Vikings could have had a chance to be horrible. They haven't been great, but they haven't been horrible. They've been almost mediocre, and I think Bridgewater gets a lot of the credit. To me, he's shown the most promise of those 3 rookie quarterbacks.
You're going with Bridgewater?
Bridgewater, yeah.
That's a good call. That is a very good call. Yeah, I'm sorry, but Manziel yesterday just didn't show maturity at all. I mean, and then you realize, that was actually a really good move that Dallas made. So you see him in Cleveland now, and it's like, well, now you got him, and he's got a lot of growing up to do on the field.
He was playing like a college quarterback out there, throwing off his back foot, trying to run around and make plays. It just doesn't work in the NFL. Mobility is good, but throwing off your back foot with speed cornerbacks in the NFL, that's just an interception waiting to happen.
It was abysmal.
All right, abysmal. That's the word of the day. Question number 2, Ferris.
Okay, so yesterday Cleveland police demanded an apology from the Browns after wide receiver Andrew Hawkins wore a shirt that read "Justice for Tamir Rice." Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old who was shot and killed by an officer. If you remember a couple weeks ago, St. Louis police asked for the same thing from the Rams when 4 of their players came out of the tunnel with their hands up, don't shoot. You've had a lot of NBA players last week wearing "I Can't Breathe" shirts. It's gotten a lot of discussion on social media. Should pro athletes be allowed to make statements with their clothing?
I think they should. And just like the police in their union should be able to defend, the officers who are trying to protect us and do their jobs as well. I don't think demanding an apology is the right thing to do. When players, whether they're expressing what they believe strongly in their opinions, or even if they're misguided, they should be allowed to express those opinions without having everyone come down on them and saying you shouldn't be doing that. Expressing a little freedom of speech. And
you're perfectly right. I'm going to come in on the other side of the ball on this one, though, and I am going to say sports is sports. The Lakers come out. I really don't need to see the "I can't breathe." Play ball. win a game, wear your uniform that you play. I want to see your number. I want to be in the sports mode. Demanding an apology, you're right. It's fruitless, and it just furthers the conversation. Move on. Take the vast majority of all the wonderful people in uniform doing wonderful things and protecting people of all colors and creeds, right? That's the majority. Take the high road. Don't respond. But I believe that a football player, when they come out of the tunnel, I don't want to see their view on anything. I don't care what it is, whether it's this or anything else. I came, I paid for a ticket, I sat down in front of the television to give you 4 hours of my time to see you play football, for this to be a time of sports. Now, there are other venues. They get interviewed a lot. They can certainly reach out. It's easy for them to get their voice heard because of their celebrity, so do it. Not at game time, not after the whistle blows, or not when you're on the court.
I think she wins that argument. That
Yeah.
was very well thought out and well stated. I think he even convinced me. There's a time for it. They're allowed to do it, but maybe not during the game time when they're actually getting paid to play. Just like you wouldn't wear a political.
I wish I had thought of that, because that's a great line.
You wouldn't wear a T-shirt when we were doing 10 News tonight. That would be inappropriate. We're working. We're representing a company. Do it on your own team.
That's a good point, because we could pick a cause that meant a lot to us, or something that we really wanted to fight against, and try to make change. But we wouldn't do it on tonight's news by wearing something when we have another job to do. We have plenty of other outlets.
All right, score a point for Kim on 3 questions. What's question number 3?
Okay, so
I better win this one.
You guys already kind of discussed this. Looking at the playoffs with 2 weeks to go, the only NFC team to clinch a spot is the Cardinals. The only AFC teams are the Pats, the Broncos, and the Colts. So of the remaining teams that are still in the hunt, who gets in and who doesn't?
Okay, so we've got a long list here. I think in the NFC it pretty is well shaken out. After the Cowboys beat the Eagles last night, I see the top 6 all getting in. Now, whether Seattle ends up as the top seed, which I think they might, because they got Arizona and they can take the tiebreaker away. But I think both teams get in, Seattle and Arizona.
So you're saying Philadelphia's out?
I think Philadelphia is going to be out. Yeah, I think Dallas is in, and I think Green Bay holds on to the last wild card spot as well, or passes Detroit, and then Detroit holds on for the wild card over Philadelphia. I think the Eagles are probably out.
I like Seattle, too.
Yeah, I picked at the beginning of the season Seattle, New England. Looked terrible for about a month. Everyone going, Seattle, they've lost it. New England, Tom Brady is done. And all of a sudden, my picks kind of come around and is back to sexy Super Bowl pick again.
So do you think Seattle is the best team in the NFC right now?
I thought Green Bay was until yesterday when they lost in Buffalo. I really did. So I think that it's a little more wide open now. But if they get home field advantage, as difficult it is to go up there and play in Seattle, they're going to be tough to stop with that playoff experience as well from the last season.
And Marshawn Lynch right now, I mean, it's just incredible. 10 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards.
Got to run it in the
good.
playoffs.
This was supposed to be
got to run it.
This was supposed to be the year he declined, and he hasn't declined.
No.
Oh gosh.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And in the AFC, it's it's very much up in the air. We've got the 3 teams that are in. I would imagine that
right now you have the Ravens and you have the Steelers in the 5 and 6 spot.
Right. That division, the North, is really up for grabs. Now, Pittsburgh and Kansas City play this week. Both control their own destiny. So the winner of that game is going to go a long way to determine. The game's in Pittsburgh. I have to lean toward the Steelers then taking that spot, but then they play Cincinnati the last week. Hate to say it about your Bengals, but they've got Denver and Pittsburgh left.
Yeah.
They could fall out, and it could end up being Pittsburgh, and then it would either be the Ravens or the Chiefs, or even the Chargers if they win this week and win in Cincinnati. So of those 3 teams, Ravens got the easiest schedule. I'll go Steelers-Ravens right now.
Okay.
Wow, he's taking the smart pick. Can't disagree
I know
with
who
that.
you're taking, and I'm glad. Chargers all the way,
Well,
right?
I know we can get it going,
Yeah.
but they're going to have to really regroup. They're going to have to figure out how they can balance out that act that they've got going. But I've always thought we could do it, and of course, emotionally, I'll always take the Chargers. But intellectually, you're absolutely right.
Because in a way, you have that last game against the Chiefs that could That could be a
could be a winner take all. That would be very exciting for the last
Wow.
game of the season, wouldn't it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Got to take care of business first. Ferris, thanks for stopping by with
you.
the 3 questions.
Great fun.
We'll take a look ahead at that San Francisco game in a second, but I want to update the standings as they look in the AFC West right now, and the wild card playoff standings don't look as good as they did last week. The Broncos, with the win, have clinched their 4th straight division title, the last 3 with Peyton Manning as quarterback, and he's won 12 straight road divisional games. Chargers and Chiefs are tied, but right now the Chiefs have the tie break because of the head-to-head win, so they've got second place, but that'll all be sorted out, in the final game when they play each other. Wild card standings, the Steelers are still in that 5th seed, and now the Ravens are in the 6th seed. But the good news is the Chargers beat the Ravens, so if they can get up there, they've got a tiebreaker, and if they can beat the Chiefs, they could have the tiebreaker on the Chiefs as well. So they just need that one Ravens loss, as we said earlier, and 2 wins, and they would be in the playoffs as one of those 2 seeds. If that doesn't happen, they could still pass the Bengals if the Bengals lost twice, or they could still pass the Steelers if the Steelers lost twice. So there are a number of scenarios out there that still get the Chargers into the playoffs, but they really have to win both of the games starting Saturday night in San Francisco. And it's interesting, Kim, it's a Saturday night game, not a Sunday game, so a short week to get ready for an opponent that could be down a little bit because the 49ers were eliminated from playoff contention with their loss in Seattle yesterday.
And both with poor offenses right now. So, we're going to...
10-7, yeah.
Yes,
could be a low-scoring game.
Go in there and figure out who of those 2 can be better on a given week. And we can, but good point you're bringing up. Will they be playing for pride at this point? They're out, but that can be really dangerous.
And with the tension between the front office in San Francisco and Jim Harbaugh, the head coach, who's said to be, maybe out the door even after taking the team to 3 NFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl the last 3 seasons, what is he going to come out to do? Is it going to be a wild game plan? Have the players given up on him, thinking he's gone? Are they going to even play for him? Or are they going to come out and say, hey, let's win one for Coach? I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup. And don't forget, the Chargers did play at that new stadium in the preseason up in Santa Clara. So they have seen it before. It won't be brand new to them.
Yep.
And it hasn't been a great home field advantage, just like the Chargers, as we talked about earlier, haven't had a great home field advantage. 49ers haven't really enjoyed one either at their home stadium.
That's true. And what do you know about the players with Harbaugh? I mean, I think there's a little rumbling, but we know the front office and Harbaugh have big problems.
I've heard the players are a little tired of his, constantly crazy attitude that Jim Harbaugh has. It works for a couple of seasons. It gets them all fired up, but eventually the veterans just get tired of hearing that kind of coach. Kind of like a Marty Schottenheimer. Works for a couple of years, but eventually players just don't respond to it anymore, and he may be at that point in San Francisco.
That's a good point. And then you wonder, once they kind of think it looks as though he'll be out, what do they come out to prove?
Yeah.
Prove that, they can get it done?
Yeah, so we will have plenty to talk about if the Chargers get a win next week. If they lose, they could be eliminated, and we might be looking ahead to the offseason. But we'll be back next Monday for another edition of Bolts Brown Bag. Kimberly, thank you so much for sitting in. Did you have fun?
I had a blast.
I'm glad. You may be back next week then.
Well,
I don't know.
You're incredible, and I love your takes and also just your scenario for the possible playoffs and all that. That's incredible, the way you're looking at it. And it gives us a lot of hope.
Right.
And hope is how we want to end it,
Hey,
right?
it worked last year. Why not again? Why not again? For Kimberly Hunt, I'm Ben Higgins. Thanks for joining us on Bolts Brown Bag, weekdays on Monday days on 12:30 on 10news.com.